I'd ask that each person participating on this call check and mute your phone before you, when you're not speaking, to prevent any interference from the background noise. I know that many of you are dealing with a variety of issues related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we will make this meeting as brief as possible out of respect for your time. I've asked the staff to be thorough but brief during their presentations today. Additionally, there are 2 agenda items that we will hold over until our July 2020 board meeting. First, we had originally planned to discuss the One-Stop Center certification document today. However, we will move that agenda item and back to the July meeting, and the members will notice that we did not include the WIOA dashboard on today's agenda. Our board staff and labor market information staff have been assisting the unemployment insurance program and were unable to pull this data together for the meeting. Finally, I'd like to let the public who are listening to the meeting remotely know that they will be given an opportunity to speak or address the board at the end of the meeting agenda. At this time, the Arkansas Workforce Development Board Director Arnell Willis would like to address the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome and good afternoon, board members and guests. As you may be aware, due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Asa Hutchinson issued Executive Order number 20-10 on May the 26th, 2020, which amended Executive Order 20-03 regarding the public health emergency concerning COVID-19 for the purpose of restricting gathering to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Additionally, the Arkansas legislature has addressed this issue via House Bill 1082, which allows the utilization of electronic means for open public meetings. Similarly, Senate Bill number 3 was recommended as due pass. This bill is expected to pass during the 92nd General Assembly fiscal session. As of today, House Bill 1082 has passed in both chambers and signed by the governor on April the 17th, 2020. Senate Bill number 3 has passed in both chambers and waiting on the governor's desk for his signature. In response to the governor's action, I reached out to the National Governors Association seeking guidance on how state workforce boards should proceed with their board meetings moving forward. Based upon the technical assistance that I received, staff will present a remote meeting participation policy for adoption by the board today. We believe that adoption of this policy will ensure everyone's safety, including board members, board staff, and stakeholders, while continuing our workforce systems responsiveness during this pandemic. Thank you, Chair Anderson.
Thank you, Director Willis. Please be reminded that we're conducting this meeting remotely, and we will need to identify ourselves by stating our names when making comments, making a motion, or providing a second to the motion. I'd like to draw your attention to Agenda Item 1, and you will find 2 sets of minutes to review and approve. First, please direct your attention to the minutes of the January 21st, 2020 board meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve these minutes.
Joe Strickland here, I recommend to approve.
Lindsey Brown, I second the motion.
Okay. I'll now ask the staff to conduct a roll call to record your vote on this motion. please respond by aye or nay or abstain when your name is called.
Mr. Lynn Blaylock,
Aye.
Miss Karen Brashears, Mr. Lindsley Brown,
Lindsey Brown, aye.
Mr. Scott Bull,
Aye.
Miss Chanda Chacon, Dr. Sharice Childers,
Aye.
Judge Brandon Ellison,
Aye.
Mr. Randy Finnegan, Mr. Jeff Griffin,
Aye.
Miss Melissa Hainsworth, Mr. Randy Henderson, Miss Abby Houseworth,
Aye.
Mr. Alan Hughes, Miss Rebecca Ives,
Aye.
Mr. Johnny Key,
Aye.
Miss Holly Little,
Aye.
Dr. Maria Markham, Mr. Brian Marsh,
Aye.
Mr. Alan McLean,
This is Joe Baxter on behalf of Alan McLean, aye.
Dr. Trina Miles,
Aye.
Mr. George Nunnally,
Aye.
Secretary Mike Preston, Dr. Julie Robertson,
Aye.
Mr. Mike Rogers,
Aye.
Mayor James Sanders,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly Sharp,
Aye.
Dr. Cassandra Williams Stokes,
Aye.
Mr. Robert Thorne, Dr. Diana Wright.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. I'd now like to draw your attention to the minutes of the February 27th, 2020 Executive Committee meeting for your review and approval. Are there any additions or corrections to these minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve, Jeff Griffin.
Motion's been made. Johnny Key second. Thank you. I now ask the staff to conduct a roll call for approval of these minutes.
Mr. Lynn Blaylock, Karen Brashears, Mr. Lindsey Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Scott Bull,
Aye.
Miss Chanda Chacon, Dr. Sharice Childers, Judge Brandon Ellison.
Sharice Childers, aye. Sorry, I was on mute.
Thank you, Dr. Childers.
Aye.
Mr. Randy Finnegan, Mr. Jeff Griffin,
Aye.
Miss Melissa, Miss Melissa, I can't talk, Hainsworth, Mr. Randy Henderson, Miss Abby Houseworth,
Aye.
Mr. Alan Hughes, Miss Rebecca Ives,
Aye.
Mr. Johnny Key,
Aye.
Miss Holly Little,
Aye.
Dr. Maria Markham, Mr. Brian Marsh,
Aye.
Mr. Alan McLean,
Bill Baxter on behalf of Alan McLean. Aye.
Dr. Trina Miles,
Aye.
Mr. George Nunnally. I'm sorry, I had a little bit of feedback. Mr. George Nunnally,
Aye.
Secretary Mike Preston, Dr. Julie Robertson,
Aye.
Mr. Mike Rogers,
Aye.
Mayor James Sanders,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly Sharp,
Aye.
Dr. Cassandra Williams Stokes,
Aye.
Mr. Robert Thorne, and Dr. Diana Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. The ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. I really don't have much of a report today, so I'll shave a little time off of the schedule. As most of you know, we're all sheltered in place, and y'all are doing very, very well on this Zoom meeting. I'm very impressed. Thank you for your patience. Next, we'll hear the report of the Division of Workforce Services Director, Dr. Therese Childers.
Thank you, Chairman Anderson, and thank you, Director Willis. I will also make my comments brief. As you are all aware, or if you aren't, I will inform you that our local, all of our workforce centers around the state are extremely busy. If you have time to go by a workforce center, I encourage you to do that and visit with those that are working in the office. Many working hours and days over their normal work schedule in order to provide services to those claimants that are there at the workforce center. Many of you have heard as well about the long lines and the length of time on calls, etc. We have added additional lines and a third-party call center to address the calls. We have been limiting the people coming into our office, which then in turn causes the long lines. However, we are trying to protect our staff and those working right there in our local offices and to keep them healthy and safe so that we can continue to keep our offices open. That would be obviously a detriment to these individuals and to the individuals within our office, and so we want to make sure that we're protecting them as well. We have had record unemployment claims. Our week ending March 14th, we had 1,387 initial claims that week. Our highest week to date has been week ending April the 4th with 62,086 claims, ending April the 4th. And then we have seen a reduction in claims for the week of April the 11th and expect a reduction also for the week of April 18th with 34,635 on April the 11th, and we're expecting in the mid-20s for the week ending April 18th. We have encouraged individuals to apply online, and then where we're receiving the calls and the long lines are usually the result of individuals that have questions. They have been disqualified for various reasons. That could be because they had earnings in their the week that they claimed, and which exceeded the amount that was allowable. It could be because they have overpayments, and so they need to talk to someone to find out what those are, even though most of them should have received that information. And then we also have those that just have questions. For example, the things I'm seeing, they put in the wrong address for their debit card. They put in the wrong information for their bank account. They reported the wrong week, etc. So a lot of these things are just user errors, and our staff is doing everything they can to address all of these issues and answering the calls that are coming into our hotline, and then also into our third-party call center. Again, your visit to the Workforce Center, if you are interested in going by there or feel like you're safe to go by there, I encourage you to do that, just because they could use the support, and just know that you're appreciative of all that they're doing. Or, as I've encouraged some of our legislators, just to drop off donuts or something like that, just to let them know that you appreciate what they're doing. They are on the front lines, like many of our healthcare workers, working with these individuals, and obviously we want to take care of the individuals, the claimants, as soon as we can and as quickly as possible. But these are unusual times, as you all know, and we're working as hard as we can in order to address their needs. The last thing that I will say, and then I'm definitely open for questions if time allows, Chairman Anderson. The pandemic unemployment assistance for those that are self-employed and independent contractors will be available. Looks like the first week of May, and then we should be able to have those payments processed mid-May. That requires a whole new system. Just as it sounds, unemployment insurance is insurance. So employers pay into it in case of an employee needing benefits. And so our regular state unemployment system is not set up to handle the claims by individuals that are self-employed or independent contractors or others that have not paid into the unemployment system. So a new system is being developed. The Department of Finance and Administration is going to operate that system for us. But we still expect that we will get individuals coming to our workforce centers with questions and also with calls about the pandemic unemployment assistance. That unemployment assistance is a minimum of $133 or more if the documentation supports earnings higher than that, plus the $600 that regular unemployment recipients are receiving. We also have extended benefits that are allowable for those whose benefits are expiring or have already expired and were on unemployment insurance back to July 2018. Those two programs will run until the end of the year. The current federal pandemic employment compensation that's currently in place with our regular unemployment individuals runs through July the 25th. I appreciate all of you being on the call today. I appreciate any support that you can give to our local offices, and I appreciate your time. Thank you, Chairman Anderson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Childers. This is an unprecedented time for everybody, and my thoughts and prayers are with you and your staff and all the folks at the workforce centers during this time. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Childers?
This is Becky Ives. I do. I have been calling down to our local and keeping in contact with the manager down there. But one question I have comes from the business I'm in. Is there any estimated time when the testing centers will reopen? Our pool's starting to get much slimmer, and I was just curious if there's any potential dates out there.
And Becky, are you referring to the workforce centers and people being able to come in?
To be able to take the CRC, that's a basic qualification. Because we have continued to hire people and bring them in on a weekly basis through this process.
I do not have a date for that, and of course that will be based on when the governor allows us to open up the offices and to see the public again on on a regular basis. If you have, I would suggest that you talk to the manager of that office and see if there's a way that you could set that up outside of the workforce center, and if not, then work with the local office manager to see if those individuals can schedule appointments to just come in one at a time, so that we're practicing social distancing within our office and we don't have a lot of people coming in unexpectedly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Chairman Anderson, anyone that has a question can send me an email or call. Emails are usually best. So if you would like to send a question to me specific to an issue that you're in your area, or would like more information, please feel free to reach out to me by email. I also want to give credit to Chris Jones for the work that he's done within our call center, working with the employees within Commerce and training them on the call center calls. He has put in a tremendous amount of time and effort, and also preparing for this meeting today, along with a lot of other DWS employees. But Chris and other individuals from the agencies in Commerce have really stepped up to the plate, and I appreciate all that everyone's doing to make sure we can conduct our daily business just like we're doing today, but also take care of those individuals that need unemployment benefits.
Thank you, Dr. Childers. It's a good team. The staff have kept things moving, and being able to trust them to pull everything together for us is, I have to extend the gratitude that direction too. But it's a good team over here at Commerce. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Chris, I'd ask you now to present the report of the staff to the board, please.
Yes, sir. I'm just going to keep my updates in two areas, some of the adjustments that we're making in response to COVID-19 and how the staff are operating the programs, and also some updates regarding the state plan. As we mentioned in the previous meeting, there are adjustments that the Department of Labor will push down as edits and recommend, just small things that need to change. So we're in the middle of that process right now. The Department of Labor has put comments across each section of the state plan, and the partner programs have to go back into the portal and make edits. I did ask our federal project officer who heads up the adult, youth, dislocated workers, and employment services programs, who provides that feedback, whether any of the changes would be substantive and need public to be put out for public comment. And she said that most everything she was aware of would not require that. So I think we'll be able to make the edits without having to rework through the entire process. But they may send something where we need to put it out again. But to her knowledge, that's not the case. We also have the 4 waivers that are being put through a separate review process. There's a committee on the federal level that reviews waiver requests to make sure that they're approved consistently across the country. We've had some additional information requested of us specifically on the out-of-school youth request. We've reached out to the local boards to give specific examples of why the reduction from 75% out-of-school youth expenditures to 50% is needed. That last round of feedback was sent to the Department of Labor, I believe that was last Friday. So they haven't responded to that just yet, but it seems like that is the one request that we had where they have a lot of questions. Just as a reminder, I was going to mention the other 3 requests that we had. We had requested that eligible training provider reporting be exempt for non-WIOA students, so that we only have to report data on WIOA participants that we have data on. This gets really complicated when you're trying to get that data from community colleges and other training providers when they're not used to providing that. We also requested that on-the-job training reimbursements be increased to 90% for employers over 50, with over 50 employees. That rate is usually reserved for smaller employers, and that's just to add more flexibility on the local level. The last request that we had put through was that the statewide funding be allowable for dislocated worker type grants, disasters, FEMA declarations, and things like the situation that we're in now and the tornado that we had in Jonesboro. What we'd like to be able to do is issue funds quicker. So we haven't had as many questions on those other three as the out-of-school youth. So we'll continue to work that process and keep you updated each quarter. The staff, as reflected in this meeting and the format here, we've made some adjustments. We are having weekly technical assistance meetings with the local directors. Every day or two, the Department of Labor is pushing out FAQs. We've seen some on rapid response activities. That's one technical assistance area that we've really honed in on with the local boards. Kind of opening up some of our carry forward funds recapture that we get from rapid response that might be able to be used for layoff aversion strategies. One of the things that we've got some traction, we have one local board that submitted an application for pretty much training or even equipment that might be needed to shift to a work from home model if it can avoid a layoff. So that's one strategy that our unit's trying to implement to help the economy and help the local businesses make adjustments to their business model. We're all working remotely for the most part. I'm headquartered up here at the call center for the time being, but the staff have been able to do all of this for the most part working remotely, and that seems to be working well. We are going to have to do desk reviews when we monitor the local boards, and we're going to run through the remote policy later on in the meeting. I did want to mention a couple things. We did, Becky had the question about CRC. I can't remember where the request came from, but we did get the question whether or not the state had any issues if someone were to lift their CRC requirement. So if they had required the CRC for a particular position, if they had lifted it because of the complications with the testing centers being closed. And just so everyone knows, in case you get that question where that impacts you specifically, if those were lifted, it doesn't really offend any of our rules. So I thought it was worth mentioning since the question was asked. And that is pretty much it. I did want to let everybody know that in the last meeting, Chairman Anderson had asked that we adopt a one-page state plan that just summarizes the main sections. And a draft has been sent to the chairman for him to take a look at, but we've been working on it for a few weeks. And right now, there's quite a bit of white space, but we're trying to condense over 150 pages. So we've got it to a one-sheeter, but it's a ledger sheet. So we're really going to have to work the white space to get it down to a more digestible size. But we're getting close, and we hope that we can get that out to the board. And what we'll do is as soon as we get to a final draft, we'll post it to the website and email it out to everybody. So that's all I have, Chairman Anderson. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Jones? Okay, well, I'll now ask him to present the most recent version of the board's strategic action plan. As most of you are aware, this document sets the strategic path for the ongoing development of the state's workforce development system. So, Mr. Jones, if you'll give us an update on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Several pages to the state plan here, and I think just to respect everyone's time, I'm going to stop on I'm going to just work the goals and the strategies. If anyone has any questions along the way or anything that they think we should work on in a specific area, feel free to slow me down and we can have that conversation as we move through the document. And I'll try to be as brief as I can so that. So the first goal in the strategic plan is develop the state plan, and that's broken up into the development and modification. These are both required under the law, so I'm going to note those when it applies, and so we can go ahead and move on because we want to be as quick as we can. Reviewing the statewide policies. There are two arms to that. Reviewing the statewide policies, recommend actions that should be taken by the state to align workforce development programs. Guidance for allocation of one-stop infrastructure. Both of these are also required under the law. So we can, I'll pause for a moment to see if there's any recommendations that we might make in the benchmarks or anything to the right there. So the next section is continuous improvement of the state's workforce system. And the first strategy that we have is identifying barriers and means for removing barriers to better coordinate, align, and avoid duplication. There are several things that we've worked in this area. We have the co-enrollment efforts, the common intake, Salesforce, also the partners meetings are all strategies that we've used to try to push that strategy or that initiative. The development of strategies to support career pathways. So we've done sector strategy guidance. It was issued to the local boards in 2017. We had sector partnership grants. We started sector and regional planning funding last year. Actually, it's been 2 years. So we've been doing a lot of work in that area as well. The strategies for providing effective outreach to and improved access for individuals and employers that could benefit from the services. I think the partners meetings, the contractor that we have that's focused on business services, a lot of the things that we do serve more than one purpose, but those are some of the things that we're doing in that area. Strategies for meeting the needs of employers, workers, and job seekers, particularly through industry or sector partnerships. Again, we made the sector funding available a couple of years ago, and we've seen some pretty good projects. Western Arkansas comes to mind as a good example, where they took their key industries, they took that funding and used it to support meetings with key industries in their area and set up small committees that focus on sector strategies. The identification of regions, this is another thing that's required. So, and we've already cleared that hurdle, so we have it marked as completed. The next major goal is develop strategies to support staff training and awareness across programs supported under the workforce development system, opportunities for sharing information and training across programs are the first two. So we've worked a couple different angles there, partners meetings, the business service efforts that Mark McManus has tried to head up, the Wheeler Roundtable, all of those things help support the training and kind of spread the knowledge, the programs that we have to every partner program in the system. So that you can see there's quite a few things that we do that fall into this. The Thomas P. Miller Associates contract, they've been training across the state. They focus on the local boards and then move to the community colleges with business service reps. That's all been in the last year. The next major goal that we have is develop strategies for technological improvements to facilitate access to and improve quality of services. And we have the enhanced digital literacy skills. There's some strategies that we've been able to try to work there. Mainly, we focused on referral processes and trying to make sure that, at least in my area, Title I, we constantly try to tell them how to connect with their local partners. Salesforce is also something that might just help us coordinate our services better there. And this goal is about using technology to facilitate access. So we think all of those things, and even the common intake, we have a lot of the framework for that set up. We just need to find the funding to tie everything together. All of those things are going to keep moving that goal forward. Accelerate the acquisition of skills and recognize post-secondary credentials by participants. We look at the CRC program quite a bit with the programs that we administer in my unit. Of course, the other partners also focus on that. Strengthen the professional development of providers and workforce professionals. We're going to, the TPMA contractor that's focused on business services, partners meetings, the executive roundtable, Wheeler Roundtable. Ensure such technology is accessible to individuals with disabilities and individuals residing in remote areas. Y'all have to forgive me for stuttering. I'm trying to go as fast as I can so this doesn't tie us up too long. Just so everyone knows, AJL and all that's readable and accessible through the partners. They help us tie everything together. Next major goal is the development of allocation of formulas for adults, youth, and DLW. That's all required, and we do that. They're actually under our policy. The CEOs raise recommendations. We still want to look at that periodically, but it's required under the law, so that needs to remain one of our goals as a board. Develop an efficient partnership with employers, the education system, workforce development partners, and community-based organizations. So many things that we do tie into this one, so I imagine there's a pretty long list. And the statuses that we have on the far right, they are just the last few quarters. If we showed you everything that we've done in that area over the last 3 or 4 years, the report would be much, much larger. So the work-based learning funds helped expand employer partnerships, and also the community-based organizations can also tie into those programs as well. Sector strategy funds that we've put out to the local boards. Expanding partnership with economic development to refine sector strategies. Several examples there. Those projects come in, they can be small projects or large projects where economic development will reach out to partner with us. We work a lot on expanding CRC and how to leverage that. We've worked on skills gap analysis, and economic development even helped us kind of frame the database for the Salesforce product so that we're all collecting similar data and can kind of share our plans a little bit easier. Should we enter the right agreements and things, the data is lined up where we can do that. Increase the utilization of registered apprenticeship programs. I think all partners are trying to find ways to do that. Department of Workforce Services, Division of Workforce Services now has received several apprenticeship grants. And the work-based learning funds that we set up can also help fund registered apprenticeship. Increase connections with employers in both rehab, especially for youth and adults with disabilities. Partner with K-12 education, higher ed. So the partnerships, that's always something that the board is heavily involved in, and the partners. That's why we have the requirements that we do for the board. Expand small business participation. A lot of different things that we've been doing hit that as well, so I won't repeat all of them. Enhance service delivery to employers and job seekers. Here, the specific strategy was common intake. You can see how it supports so many different things once we get that moving forward and we have the funding to tie our systems together. Promote training that leads to industry-recognized credentials and certification. We do have this flag that's under development, but our policies, and especially under all four titles, a lot of our reporting and our standards, even our requirements, are built around credentials. So that's almost a requirement. The same thing for supporting transportable skill sets. Support career pathways development and sector strategy. Again, we have funding. We've provided technical assistance to the local boards. Expand service delivery access points using virtual services. That's a pretty tough one. That expanding service delivery through virtual services is that's something that remains a goal that we're just going to have to work towards. Develop a common business outreach strategy with a common message. You'll recall I think it was 2 or 3 years, it's probably 3 years ago, I think real early on, we kind of re-engaged the business engagement committee of the WELA Roundtable to start talking about a common menu of services and how to market that together and talk about each other's programs so that we're not reaching out with so many touches to the businesses, trying to tie that together by cross-training. But it's something that we have to continue working on. Conduct statewide skills and asset analysis. That is the contract with U of A that we have. They're doing skills gap analysis for us. Develop and implement an action plan to close the basic, core, technical, and soft skills gaps in Arkansas. And that's just, I think, addressing the skills gap is something that that is exactly what we are always doing. That's why the eligible training provider list works the way that it does. We have to be moving towards high demand occupations, and so we're always moving towards that. So that's pretty much the end of the report. We've done a lot of work over the last 3 years, but we wanted to use this meeting because we had cleared all the major policies in the state plan and kind of had a break in the required activities that we needed to do, to just take a moment and see if any of the board members would like to see some adjustments, especially in that goals and strategic initiatives column.
Thank you very much, Director Jones. Are there any comments or questions about our strategic plan? Okay.
It's a lot. I know. But if you have any questions, feel free to send them to me. And
Okay.
maybe we can revisit. I'll work with Chairman Anderson to see if we can revisit.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll turn to agenda item number 3. It's our remote meeting participation policy. And as Director Willis mentioned earlier, we've reached out to the National Governors Association for guidance on how to proceed. And based upon this guidance, I'll ask Mr. Jones to present the new policy for consideration by the board.
Thank you, Chairman Anderson. So the policy is broken up into two major avenues for using remote participation. The first section really focuses on situations like the one that we're in, where there's a natural disaster, emergency, or some other situation that prohibits the board as a whole to convene in person. The standard that we've put in the policy, there's in the second bullet, is unreasonably difficult. We kind of go through some of the mechanics of the meeting and how the voice roll call would have to be used, and how the agency directors using proxy would need to notify the board director, things like that. The second part, that starts additionally, the board is establishing the following criteria for remote participation. So this section covers if a board member, just one board member has an issue that makes it unreasonable for them to attend in person. They would need to notify the board executive director and the board chair at least 2 weeks. They could do this once per calendar year and it not go towards their the 3 miss rule. And so we kind of encourage folks to try to attend in person if at all possible, just to help with engagement. But that is basically how the policy would work. And as a side note, we have pushed this out to the local boards as well because they were struggling with the same issue. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take those, Chairman.
Okay, does anyone have any questions about our remote meeting participation policy? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Brian Marsh.
Seconded, Diana Wright.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. I'll ask the staff now to conduct a roll call to vote on this motion.
Mr. Lynn Blaylock,
Aye.
Karen Brashears, Mr. Lindsey Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Scott Bull,
Aye.
Ms. Chanda Chacon, Dr. Sharice Childers,
Aye.
Judge Brandon Ellison,
Aye.
Mr. Randy Finnegan, Mr. Jeff Griffin,
Aye.
Miss Melissa Hainsworth, Mr. Randy Henderson,
Aye.
Miss Abby Houseworth,
Aye.
Mr. Alan Hughes, Miss Rebecca Ives,
Aye.
Mr. Johnny Key,
Aye.
Miss Holly Little,
Aye.
Dr. Maria Markham, Mr. Brian Marsh,
Aye.
Mr. Alan McLean,
Bill Baxter on behalf of Alan McLean. Aye.
Dr. Trina Miles,
Aye. Aye.
Mr. George Nunnally, Secretary Mike Preston, Dr. Julie Robertson,
Aye.
Mr. Mike Rogers,
Aye.
Mayor James Sanders,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly Sharp,
Aye.
Dr. Cassandra Williams Stokes,
Aye.
Mr. Robert Thorne, Dr. Diana Wright,
Aye.
Thank you very much. The ayes have it. The remote participation policy has been approved. We also agreed that we would keep a standing agenda item that for members to engage in any discussion of any kind of topics that you wanted to bring up before the board. Does anyone have anything they want to add, or are there any items that anybody wants to bring up at this time? Okay. Next, as I promised at the beginning of the meeting, I'd like to ask if any of the public listening to the meeting would like to address the board. Now's the opportunity to do so. Okay, hearing none. As most of you know, our committee meetings that were previously scheduled for March were canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We hope to have these meetings in June 2020 in advance of our July 2020 meeting. Information for those committee meetings will be forthcoming to the committee chairs. Really, I appreciate everybody's attention on this meeting and the staff's hard work in putting this together. I know it's rather cumbersome to do this via Zoom, but everybody has done a great job. So this concludes today's business. Is there any other business anybody would like to bring up? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Lindsey Brown, I make a motion to adjourn.
Abby Houseworth, second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Instead of having a roll call on this, we'll just ask, does anybody object to adjourning?
Excuse me, Chair Anderson.
Yes.
I would like to go through and confirm our attendance before everyone gets off of here and we actually close out the meeting, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay, that'd be perfect.
Okay. Mr. Lynn Blaylock,
Yes.
Miss Karen Brashears, Mr. Lindsey Brown,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Scott Bull,
Yes.
Miss Chanda Chacon, Dr. Sharice Childers,
Yes.
Judge Brandon Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Randy Finnegan, Mr. Jeff Griffin,
Here.
Miss Melissa Hainsworth, Mr. Randy Henderson,
Yes.
Miss Abby Houseworth,
Present.
Mr. Allen Hughes, Miss Rebecca Ives,
Here.
Mr. Johnny Key,
Yes.
Miss Holly Little,
Yes.
Dr. Maria Markham, Mr. Brian Marsh,
Yes.
Mr. Alan McLean,
Bill Baxter here on behalf of Alan McLean.
Dr. Trina Miles,
Yes.
Mr. George Nunnally,
Yes.
Secretary Mike Preston, Dr. Julie Robertson,
Yes.
Mr. Mike Rogers,
Yes.
Mayor James Sanders,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly Sharp,
Yes.
Dr. Cassandra Williams Stokes,
Here.
Mr. Robert Thorne, and Dr. Diana Wright.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Anderson.
Thank you. And thanks for everybody's participation today. The meeting's officially adjourned. Stay safe out there.
Thank you.
You take care, Tom.